optimism and hope for the common denominator of over 80 ethnicity, a country with 3,000 years of glorious history and culture, mother of freedom. Ethiopia.
Welcome to Ethiopia Today. Our today's presentation covers the following topics. Over 140 Ethiopian companies participate at 2022 Dubai Gulf Food Exhibition. No sacred cows as Tshwane of South Africa cuts power and water to recover over $1 billion. The world's top 10 billionaires have more money than the combined gross domestic products GDPs of 17 African countries. Ethiopian political parties' joint council requests parliament to temporarily halt National Dialogue Commissioner selection. Resume process in inclusive and trustworthy manner. East Africa records little progress to reduce inequality. Details are presented as follows.
Over 140 Ethiopian companies participate at 2022 Dubai Gulf Food Exhibition. Over 140 Ethiopian huge companies have been taking part at Dubai Gulf Food Exhibition to promote their products at international level. Ministry of Trade and Regional Integration State Minister Danj Boru said that the number of Ethiopian companies that are participating at Gulf Food Exhibition has been increasing from year to year and the exhibition very helpful to promote different Ethiopian products. As to the state minister, the country's companies that have engaged in agricultural-related products have been supplying products like coffee, honey, meat, and others. He said that Ethiopian companies have been providing unique products, especially like Ethiopian coffees and meat, adding that these products are unique in terms of quality and taste. He said that the country's companies have been participating and running in a well manner at the exhibition and they have been creating agreement with different international buyers. He said that during post-COVID-19 the exhibition is very helpful to resume the economic sector through linking buyers and sellers at worldwide level. No sacred cows as Tshwane of South Africa cuts power and water to recover over $1 billion. In a battle to ensure that they are paid what they are owed for providing services, the city of Tshwane, which includes Pretoria where President Cyril Ramaphosa's offices are, has embarked on an aggressive revenue collecting campaign by disconnecting water and electricity to government departments, diplomatic missions, and commercial properties. The city is owed 17 billion rand, approximately $1,125,730,140 in arrears. We mean business. Make arrangements to pay your account before you find yourself in the dark, the city warned on social media on February 9th, shortly before it disconnected electricity supply at the 5-star Sheraton Hotel. They say the Sheraton Hotel owes the city 23 million rand. So far it seems that no one is immune during this unprecedented local government campaign, with the city cutting off electricity at the South African National Defence Force offices. When we say no fear, no favor, we mean it. We are at the SANDF Navy headquarters to cut electricity. They owe us 3,197,428.81 rand in property rates, they announced. Among those owing large amounts to the city is the Department of Infrastructure Development, which owes 260 million rand in rates and services. Electricity was disconnected at the offices of the South African Women's Federation, which owes about 5 million rand in arrears. Meanwhile, the state-owned arms manufacturer Denel has just settled their 2.2 million rand debt. Some businesses have approached the courts to interdict the municipality from cutting services. However, member of the Mayoral Committee for Finance Alderman Peter Sutton has dismissed as false rumors that all the cases are being taken to court and the city is losing. Less than 1% of court challenges against the city for disconnecting debtors have been successful. The city anticipated that there would be pushback and we ensured that we have dedicated legal teams on standby, Sutton said. The city of Tshwane aims to recover up to 5 billion rand from its debtors by the end of February 2022 by going door to door to collect on unpaid bills. It also emphasized that the debt collection campaign is not going to be a once-off, hence they are prepared to defend the disconnections that will be implemented at every turn. Pretoria businesses, residents, government entities, and government departments owe the city over 17 billion rand. The world's top 10 billionaires have more money than the combined gross domestic products GDPs of 17 African countries. The world's top 10 billionaires are richer than the combined GDPs of Kenya, Ghana, Ethiopia, and 14 other African countries. According to information obtained from Forbes' real-time billionaires list, the world's top 10 billionaires have a combined net worth of $370.1 trillion. On the other hand, the GDPs of the 17 African countries stood at $1.7 trillion as of year-end 2021, according to Statista. Checks by Business Insider Africa have shown that the combined GDPs of Kenya, Ghana, Ethiopia, and 14 other countries are lesser than the combined net worth of the world's top 10 billionaires. According to the Forbes real-time billionaires list, as at the time of filing this report, the world's top 10 billionaires could boast of a combined net worth of $370.1 trillion. This is more than $1.7 trillion, which is the combined GDPs of the 17 African countries. Before we proceed, it's important to quickly stress some points here, says Business Insider Africa. The first one is the fact that there are different sources where one can glean information about billionaires' net worths. For one, there is the Bloomberg Billionaire Index, which a lot of people like to cite. And of course, there is the Forbes real-time billionaires list, which we have decided to use for this article. Although these lists can vary, they are not entirely contradictory of one another. And one thing that is similar to them all is that fact that billionaires' net worths are never constant. Instead, they change due to fluctuations in asset values and other factors. The next point to bear in mind is the fact that the 17 African countries that are herein highlighted are among the top 20 African countries with the highest GDPs in 2021 according to Statista. Note, however, that we have excluded the first three countries, which are Nigeria with a GDP of $514.5 billion, Egypt $394.28 billion, and South Africa $329.53 billion. Ethiopian political parties' joint council request Parliament to temporarily halt National Dialogue Commissioner's selection. Resume process in inclusive and trustworthy manner. Learn from Addis Standard. Ethiopian political parties' joint council, a coalition of more than 53 legally registered political parties in Ethiopia, has issued a statement requesting the House of People's Representatives to temporarily halt the ongoing proceedings to select the 11 commissioners to lead the planned National Dialogue Commission (NDC). EPPJC, which includes members both from the ruling and opposition political parties, requested the Parliament to resume the process in an inclusive and trustworthy manner. In a letter addressed to Tagasa Chafo, Speaker of the House of People's Representatives, EPPJC stated that in an urgent National Assembly meeting held on February 10, 2022, and thoroughly evaluated the planned national dialogue, including the preparation of the Commission establishment proclamation, nomination of candidate commissioners, and other issues directly related to the process. It was on December 29 that the House approved the Commission's establishment proclamation number 1265/2014 by majority vote with 13 numbers and 1 abstention. Subsequently, the HOPR's Standing Committee on Law, Justice, and Democracy said commissioners who will be leading the National Dialogue Commission will be selected by the people of Ethiopia, and their appointments will be approved by the Parliament.
Are you looking to earn working remotely from anywhere with maximum flexibility and convenient? Do you have a talent or services to offer to your clients? You have great chance of working on several jobs or projects for multiple clients at one time. Or are you a business owner or employer who are looking for hiring freelancer to work on your project? Well, if that's yes, please click the link below to learn more about and get started.
East Africa records little progress to reduce inequality. East African countries have recorded impressive economic growth in the past 2 decades, but there has been little progress in reducing inequality in its population, according to independent Uganda. A new report by a global organization, Oxfam and Development Finance International (DFI), shows a widening gap between rich and the poor people, signaling worsening health and other outcomes for the population. The study, conducted in Uganda, South Sudan, Rwanda, DRC, Kenya, Tanzania, Burundi, Somalia, and Ethiopia, to analyze the impact of COVID-19 on growth, poverty, and inequality, as well as the responses of governments, their creditors, and the IMF and World Bank, shows that income is increasingly concentrating in the hands of a tiny few, even as a majority are struggling to meet their most basic needs, such as education, healthcare, and decent jobs. The study says the richest 10% receive an average of 47% of pre-tax national income across the region. For the richest 1%, their average share of income across the region is 15.7%. 2.5 percentage points more than the poorest 50% of citizens earn. In Rwanda, the richest 1% of the population earns 20% of national income, nearly double the share held by the bottom 50%, the report states. This comes as the COVID-19 pandemic is projected to sharply increase poverty and inequality, with the IMF, World Bank, and UN already sounding an alarm. The IMF has already issued special drawing rights SDRs of $650 billion to enable countries support spending or pay down domestic debt. Estimates show that the bottom 40% of the world's citizens have seen a 5% fall in their income compared to pre-pandemic projections. At the same time, global stock market booms saw billionaires' wealth increase by $5.5 trillion between March 18, 2020 and July 31, 2021, as the world's richest 20% were expected to have recovered any income and wealth losses sustained during the pandemic at the end of the very year. Further, COVID-19 exposed how woefully unprepared East African governments were for a pandemic. The findings shows that East African countries had limited access to essential health services, reaching fewer than 60% of the population in all countries. An average of 7% of people spending catastrophic proportions more than 10% of their income on healthcare. Limited commitment to spending on healthcare, with under 10% of government budgets dedicated to health in all countries except Ethiopia, Burundi, and DRC. And extremely low access to social protection benefits, using pension coverage as a proxy, with only 10.5% coverage on average and under 10% in 6 countries. The study also showed that countries in the region had very low social protection spending of only 7% of budgets, only 40% of the global average, and that an average of only 20% of workers were on formal contracts, 34% less than the global average, and thus having the right to sick pay and job protection, among others. In short, when COVID-19 hit, half of East Africa's citizens had inadequate access to healthcare. 90% lacked social protection and 80% lacked labor rights to cope with the pandemic, notes the study. Though the nature of responses to COVID-19 pandemic varied between countries, only Rwanda has included plans to invest more in health systems and preparedness beyond 2021 until 2024. Somalia, meanwhile, has increased its health spending tenfold between 2009 and 2021 to 5% of total federal spending. All countries have also increased social protection spending, but some increases, example in DRC. South Sudan and Tanzania have been very limited, the report states. In contrast to other African regions, most spending has been on health and social protection responses rather than the broader economy. Many governments are also having to use an increasing share of their budget to service growing debts rather than investing in their populations, a trend that the governments have embraced for many years. This is because even before COVID-19, debt servicing was at astronomical levels in many East African countries. On average, in 2019, East African countries were spending 5 times as much on domestic and external debt servicing as on health, with South Sudan spending 28 times as much. Only Burundi, DRC, and Somalia spent more on health than debt servicing. And with the debt to GDP averaging 54.5% and debt service revenue 35.2% by 2020 to 21, the highest debt service costs are for Uganda, South Sudan, Kenya, and Rwanda, which are spending around or over half their revenue. Only in Somalia, DRC, and Burundi is debt absorbing less than 25% of revenues. Kenya comes top on public services in East Africa, but only 13th in Africa and 110th out of 158 countries globally. This, according to the study, is because it spends almost 20% of its budget on education, resulting in 12% of the poorest children finishing secondary school. Nevertheless, its performance on health and social protection is much weaker, so its public services reduce inequality by only 12%. On the other hand, Uganda ranked 37th in Africa and 144th out of 158 countries worldwide, beating only South Sudan in the region. South Sudan ranks bottom in East Africa and globally on public services, with the study arguing that as a country emerging from conflict, it is spending only 11.7% of its budget on education, health, and social protection combined. These services are not reaching the poorest people. Only 1% of the poorest children finish secondary school, and just 31% of citizens have access to healthcare. As a result, public services are estimated to reduce inequality by only 0.6%. In the education sector, only Ethiopia is meeting the internationally recommended 20% of national budgets on education spending as set by the Education for All Partnership. The education share is said to be the second highest in the world. Kenya, DRC, and Burundi are not far from meeting the target, but South Sudan and Somalia are under 10%. Health sector too face a similar challenge, as spending on health in East Africa is only half the Abuja African Union commitment of 15% of budget. Only 3 countries, with Burundi, DRC, and Ethiopia, spending over 10% of their budget to health. Uganda, Kenya, and Rwanda spends 9.7%, 9.2%, and 9.0% respectively of their national budgets to health. Somalia and South Sudan spend just 2%. All East African countries are falling well short of the Sustainable Development Goals of 100% universal health coverage, with 6 not having reached 50% coverage when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, the report notes, adding that Uganda and DRC also have extremely high levels of catastrophic out-of-pocket health spending, defined as households spending more than 10% of their income on healthcare. The picture isn't better with the social protection. The pre-pandemic social protection spending averaged only 7.2% of national budgets in East Africa and fell below 10% in all countries except Tanzania. Kenya saw its social protection spending fall below 5% of the population. To make the situation even worse, all countries in the region reach fewer than 25% of their population with pension. In Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi and Rwanda, the pension coverage rate is below 10% in spite of the fact that Sustainable Development Goals roots for 100% social protection coverage. Quoting IMF projections for the 9 East African countries in 2022-26, the study shows that they plan to reduce annual public spending by 4.7% of GDP on average compared with 2021, yet not implementing these cuts would be enough for 5 governments to quadruple health spending and keep it at that level until 2026. These cuts could stop them combating the increases in poverty and inequality that have resulted from COVID-19. South Sudan, where there were more generals than doctors before COVID-19, could multiply its health spending by 13 times. The study notes that in all countries the planned cuts exceed annual health budgets. They are twice as high in Uganda, 4 times in Burundi, and 34 times in South Sudan. The austerity is being encouraged in IMF policy assessments, loans, and advice on reducing overall spending immediately after the pandemic in order to achieve smaller deficits and reduce debt levels rather than sharply increasing spending on health, education, social protection, and food security to fight inequality. Commenting on the new study, Nivetiti Nandaja, the coordinator for the Women Rights Program at Oxfam Uganda, said Uganda is in dire need for major reforms to reverse the trend. We have extremely low access to social protection benefits using pension coverage as a proxy, she said. Only 6.6% of elderly Ugandans had pension coverage compared to the 24.8% coverage in Kenya, whereas 84% of the labor force was in informal employment, thus not covered by existing labor rights. The third worst rate in the region. Mitchell Anabiona, a policy analyst at CSBAB, said the government need to scale up investment in health, education, and social protection to protect the vulnerable and enhance resilience to the future shocks. The government should increase health budget to at least 15% of the total government expenditure to reduce high out-of-pocket healthcare costs, he said, adding that the education budget should also be increased to at least 20%. Social protection aspect is scaled up. Jane Nalunga, the executive director at the Seton Uganda, noted that it's time for government to make tax regime progressive to reduce over-reliance on regressive taxes such as VAT. Capital income such as dividends, capital gains, and property tax income should be taxed more than labor income, she said, adding that the government should at the same time use the current special drawing rights issuance and concessional external loans to pay down its domestic debt and free up fiscal space. Meanwhile, Susan Aiton, coordinator Women's Right Access to Justice at UNET, said the government should create decent jobs, reduce wage gap, and raise the minimum wage.
Thanks for staying with us. If you enjoyed our presentation, give us a like and share to your social contacts. And also don't forget to subscribe and tap on the notification bell if this is your first time. Please also check on our collection of favorites on the description section below. See you on our next video. Many thanks. May God bless Ethiopia and its people.